It's time for our next installment of the Kingdom series, where we've been wanting to look at what is the Kingdom of God? What can we learn about the Kingdom of God? What does it mean to live in the Kingdom of God? The Kingdom of God seems to be a pretty big deal in the New Testament. So what can we learn from all of the references? And so we've just been walking through the New Testament references to the kingdom. So far, we're still in Matthew, and just seeing all the things that Jesus has to say about the kingdom, or others, and just learning from that. And so we've learned all kinds of things. We've walked through like Sermon on the Mount, and we've learned all kinds of things about the kingdom of God. We have been, for the last few lessons, in a section of parables. So Matthew 13 is this combination of teachings, this group of teaching that Jesus has had, and he's discussing. He keeps saying the kingdom of heaven is like a sower that went out to sow a seed. Kingdom of heaven is like a woman who baked a small amount of flour into a large amount of dough. Or put a small amount of leaven, excuse me. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. The kingdom of heaven is like weeds that were sown in the midst of wheat. And every one of these, so Jesus keeps saying the kingdom of heaven is like, and he gives an image, a parable, a picture of what the kingdom of heaven is like. And we have been looking at those, trying to learn from that. What are the lessons that we're supposed to take away as students to what it means to live in the kingdom and to be a part of what God's doing in the world? And so today what we're going to do is it's almost going to be almost like a summary. We're going to look at the last parable of Matthew 13, and we'll kind of use it as a wrap-up to this section of teachings that Jesus has had. So he's talked about the parable of the sower. He's talked about the parable of the weeds. He talked about the parable of the mustard seed and the yeast in the dough. And then the disciples have come to him and they've said, can you go back to the parable of the weeds and explain the weeds to us? So then Jesus explains the weeds, and then he gives them a few more parables. He then tells them the parable of the treasure buried in the field and the pearl of great price. And then there's one more parable that we're going to look at today. One more statement about what the kingdom of heaven is like. And we'll just kind of see what comes out of this conversation. So Matthew 13, verse 47. Once again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net. This is what the kingdom of heaven is like. Here's a picture. Here's an image that conveys to you in Jesus' words, this is what the kingdom of God is like. That's what the kingdom of heaven is like. The kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into a lake and caught all kinds of fish. When it was full, the fishermen pulled it up onto the shore, and they sat down and collected the good fish in baskets, but they threw the bad away. This is how it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the blazing furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, in the last couple videos, we talked about pardes. We talked about Peshat, and Remez, and Drosh, and Sod. We had this conversation about Jewish hermeneutics, and you have the tools, and we talk about it on the podcast. You have the tools to have that conversation here. I think there's some really interesting things here. Fishermen catching fish could be a Remez. I'm giving you some hints, maybe, of things that but you can probably find things that even I don't think of. Blazing furnace. The angels will come and throw and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into a blazing furnace. That seems like an interesting reference. Like there might be something there, Remez-wise. Weeping and gnashing of teeth. Those are all things that you could think of the pardes. I don't want to get into the pardes. We do that in the podcast. I don't need to do that in every single one of these videos. I do kind of want to back up, because the question driving our video series here, our teaching series here on YouTube, is we're asking the question, what is the kingdom of heaven like? And so I want to back up. This last parable caps off a whole series of teachings, and I just kind of want to look at what maybe some of our takeaways should be as we examine these parables. So to go back to this whole, at least as Matthew tells it here, there's kind of like there's a whole group of teaching that kind of seems to happen in the same place, the same time. So we go back to the beginning of Matthew 13. There's a parable of the sower. So Jesus is going to give a few parables. And then if you remember what it's going to say, verse 36, then he left the crowd and went into the house. His disciples came to him and said, explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field. So Jesus is going to give a few teachings, a few parables, and then they go into a house, And the disciples come and are like, can you go back to that? We need some more explanation. So there's two portions of this. There's the teaching that Jesus gives to everybody. There's a few parables that Jesus tells everyone. And then they get away by themselves, and there's a few more parables that Jesus tells just to his disciples when they ask for more. So I would expect on some level, that what Jesus is doing is he is offering an explanation to what, a deeper explanation. He's giving further commentary to what he just taught to the crowds outside. In other words, I would expect there to be a direct relationship between the first set of teachings and the second set of teachings. Doesn't mean they're the exact same. I would just expect there to be a correlation, a relationship between public, the crowd parables, and the private parables. Because they are told in response to a question. They are, in essence, Jesus' answer to the disciples saying, we want to go back to that. We're confused. And Jesus essentially gives them more parables to be confused about, which I love, by the way. But Jesus started this whole exchange with the crowds. When Jesus is out with the crowds, he tells the story of the sower. To which, if you remember, the disciples came to Jesus and were like, why do you do this? Why do you teach the people in parables? And Jesus is like, I teach people in parables because they don't want to understand. You do, and there are others like you that do, but most people don't. So I'm not here to just tell them the truth. I'm not here to make it easy for them, because they don't actually want to know the truth. Because if they knew the truth, they'd have to change, Jesus said. He quoted Isaiah. And if they changed, I would help them, but they don't actually want to change. And so I speak to people in parables, because the people that want to change will be rewarded. He who has ears, let him hear, Jesus will say. I'm here to talk to those people that really want to hear. Not the ones that don't, like everybody says they want to hear. But there are a whole lot of people that don't really want to hear, because if they heard, they would have to be transformed. I'm here to talk to the people that really want to be transformed. And that's why I make you work for it, Jesus says. I want you to work for it. And so then he explains the parable of the sower, and he essentially tells them, he's like, which soil are you? Are you the path? Are you the rocky soil? Are you the thorny soil? Are you the good soil? Because if you want to be good soil, it is going to require work. That is a fitting parable to what Jesus just said. I talk to them in parables because they don't want to hear. If they want to hear, they're going to have to work for it. And Jesus says, which soil are you? Are you? Because if you want to be good soil, you are going to have to get rid of the rocks, get rid of the thorns, prepare your heart. It's going to be work. You're going to have to try. You are not going to stumble into the kingdom. You're going to have to try. And if you try, you will be rewarded, but there will be work involved. And I'm not talking about getting saved. I'm talking about the kingdom of God. I'm not talking about salvation. I'm not talking about going to heaven. I'm talking about if you want to experience the kingdom of God now, here on earth, if you want to participate in the thing that God is doing in the world today, right now, it's not just gonna come naturally. You're gonna have to work at it. There's gonna be some intentionality to it. And then Jesus tells the parable of the weeds, which, if you remember his explanation, which doesn't come until later, but if you remember, that parable is essentially about, hey, will you leave the weeding up to God? Don't do God's work. Don't do God's job. God has his angels. God has his harvesters. God will deal with weeds and wheat, but you're probably going to get it wrong. So you just take part, participate in the kingdom, and leave the distinguishing, worry about the distinctions. That's not your job. Your job is to just be wheat. Your job is just to help me farm my field. Your job is not to weed all the weeds out of my wheat field. That's my job. I got that. Jesus says, God says through Jesus, I got that. It's not your job. Don't worry about weeds and wheat. Don't worry about figuring out who's in and who's out. Saved or not saved. Lost, heaven or hell. My job. It's my job. It's my job. And then Jesus, I don't know how you feel. The next two parables, I feel like Jesus is saying, here's what is your job. So let's go back again. Review. Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is going to be something you got to work at. You got to work on. It's going to be hard work. You're going to have to prepare your soil. Second, the kingdom of God is not something where you decide who's in and who's out. The kingdom of God is going to be full. The kingdom of God catches everything in its net. That's today's parable. The kingdom of God grows everything in its field. The kingdom of God is universal in its comprehensiveness, and God's the one that gets to decide later on his timetable, in his way, what's in, what's out, what stays, what goes, not your job. So it's going to be something you got to work at. It's going to be something that involves preparation and intentionality, and it's going to involve everything, good and bad. The kingdom of God is not just about this. It's not just about the good. The kingdom of God is about the mess. And it's not your job to figure out all the ins and outs of the mess. What is your job is to be a tree where the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. What is your job is to make 60 pounds of flour for the outsiders. So the kingdom of God is going to take preparation and intentionality. It's going to be difficult. And it's not going to be difficult because you have to do God's job. It's going to be difficult because the job that you have to do, the job that God's invited you to do, the job you're given to do, is to bless, to be a blessing. And doing that, by the way, if you think about the parable of the mustard seed and the leaven, is going to be counterintuitive. It's going to be offensive at times to the world because it's backwards from the world's metrics. It's going to be small, not big. However, it is going to be unstoppable. So the kingdom of God, I keep reviewing because I want us to catch the big picture here. The kingdom of God is going to require preparation and intentionality. It's going to be hard work. It is not your job to weed the field. It is your job to bless everyone you come in contact with. To be a blessing. To be hospitable. Okay, so then they go into the house, and they're like, we're confused. Can we go back? Can we talk about the weeds again? Which I love the fact that they don't ask about the mustard seed or the leaven. They just want to are you sure it's not our job to weed the field? Are you sure? And then Jesus is going to tell them his next set of teachings, which I believe correlate to what he just said. So he explains the parable of the weeds. We already did that in a past video. Then he tells the parable of the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field and a pearl of great price. That was our last video. Which I wrestle with is the person who finds the treasure and finds the pearl. Is it God or is it us or is it both? If the front half of these teachings are in relationship to the back half, if the public teachings are related to the private teachings, I feel like what Jesus is saying is I need you, that the kingdom of heaven is hard work, but I need you to bless other people. I need you to be the work about, I need you to be of the work of generosity and hospitality. I need you to bless. I need you to pray for your enemies. I need you to love your enemies. I need you to be about the work of blessing and hospitality. I want you to go put the world back together. And the reason is because I value. The kingdom of heaven was like a man who found a treasure buried in a field. What have we just been talking about? Fields, sowers, weeds and wheat. God says, you know the reason why I'm not interested in you doing the weeding in my field, God says? Because I went and bought the field. Because I love the field. There are treasures in my field. And you have a hard time seeing the treasure like I do. So you just leave the treasure to me. I just need you to go bless people because I love my field. It's a pearl of great price. I'd do anything to make sure that field is mine. that the kingdom is mine. I just need your help to help me farm the field, bless the field, be hospitable to those in the field. And then he closes reiterating, in my mind, it's a very similar parable to the parable of the weeds. Weeds and wheat. You want us to go pull the weeds out? Jesus says, no. I got my angels. I got my harvesters. That's my job. And now at the end of Matthew 13, he tells the parable about fish caught in a net. And by the way, the net, just like the field, catches everything. It's universal. It catches all the stuff, good and bad. It's all in there. Just like the field had weeds and wheat. It didn't just have wheat. It had weeds and just the net catches good and bad. It gets all the it's a drag net. It catches all the trash. It gets the garbage. It gets the tilapia. It gets the sardines. It gets the good stuff. It gets the bad stuff. It just catches it all. And what does Jesus say? This is how it will be at the end of the age. Jesus says, don't worry. The angels will come. Exact same thing he said in the weeds. The angels will come and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the blazing furnace. Jesus says, the kingdom is going to catch it all. But I don't need you to do the weeding. I don't need you to get rid of the good fish, the bad fish. I got that. I got angels that'll do that at the end of the age. I just need you to bless. Because the kingdom's going to catch all of it, and I'm going to sort it out later. So can you just go, what is the kingdom, why am I doing this? What is the kingdom of heaven like? What is the kingdom of God like? Has Marty lost his mind in this YouTube series? What's going on? The kingdom of heaven is like all these stories, all these parables. The kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet, like a big field where everything is growing, good and bad. You want to be a part of the good? Prepare your soil. Be a part of the thing that God's doing in the kingdom. And make sure that you realize that when you prepare your soil and you grow, you are supposed to produce a harvest, a crop, 160, 30 times what was sowed. That crop, that fruit will be seen in the hospitality and the blessing that you provide for other people. And do not worry about the good and the bad. Don't worry about all the other stuff that's in the kingdom, because God's got that. He'll take care of that. God doesn't need your help with that. God needs your help being shade and branches for birds. He needs your help making 60 pounds of flour into dough for visitors. That's what he needs your help with. But leave the weeding, leave the net full of fish and garbage. Leave that to God. He's got that. Doesn't need our help with that. But there are things that he does need our help with. That's the king. You want to know what the kingdom of heaven is like? That. And yet, how many lessons, sermons, conversations have we had where we talk about the kingdom of heaven and we talk as if we're the ones in charge, like we're the angels. We talk like we're the harvesters. Well, I'll tell you what the kingdom of heaven is like. It's like this, and it's not like that. And I'll tell you how to get in, and I'll tell you how to be a part of it, and I'll tell you how to stay in it. That ain't it. That ain't it. I love how this ends. Have you understood all these things? Jesus asked. And they say, yes, they replied, which I love. And maybe they did. I don't know. It just seems like a weird, all these parables, all this crazy teaching, stuff that's going to keep them awake at night for days. Jesus is like, you understand all this? They're like, yep. And maybe they do. Maybe they're like, yeah, I do understand it. We had to double check to make sure we understood it. But that's going to be hard. But we'll go wrestle with that, Jesus. Have you understood all these things? Jesus asked. Yes, they replied. Man, if we understand it, have we understood all these things? If the answer is yes, we probably have a whole lot to wrestle with. We have a lot to keep us busy, don't we? In the kingdom of God. And then he says this, by the way. For all of us that consider ourselves really smart Bible teachers, and we get to decide whether Marty is right or wrong, or we get to give our blessing to good, sound Bible doctrine teaching. There's a lot of us, myself included. Jesus says this. He said to them, therefore, every teacher of the law, teachers of the law, those are like the most revered the most educated people in the Jewish society. That's the top. Every teacher of the law who has become a disciple is a student. A disciple is a learner. I mean, they're not necessarily the bottom, but they're not the teacher. Every teacher of the law, everyone that's on top, that becomes a student and a learner. In the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out of his storeroom new treasures as well as old. And I think there is a remez happening right there, by the way. You can pull out your pardes there, because I think there's some pardes at play. But I don't want to go there. Just listen to the Peshat. Every teacher of the law who becomes a disciple in the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out of his storeroom new treasures as well as old. Jesus is like, so you know everything there is to know about the Bible? It's great. It's good. Every teacher of the law, well, you have the old stuff, but if you keep learning, if you keep growing, if you stay humble and allow yourselves to learn in the kingdom of heaven, because the kingdom of heaven is never going to stop teaching you. The kingdom of heaven is never going to stop shaping you. The kingdom of heaven is never going to stop doing its work in you. And if you let the kingdom of God continue, if you continue to learn, if you continue to be a student, if you continue to be shaped and molded by the kingdom of God, well, you'll be like a homeowner who brings out of his storehouses new treasures. As you'll have all the old wisdom, you'll have all the old hokmah, all the old rooted, deep-seated truths that have been true. You'll also have fresh, new, beautiful, dynamic, vibrant insight. Anybody who allows themselves, a teacher of the law that allows himself to be a student, a disciple in the kingdom of heaven, he'll have new treasures and old. He'll have such a well-rounded, powerful palate. She will be able to go places and do stuff in the kingdom of God because she has allowed herself to be shaped and molded and taught. And she has new treasures as well as old. That's good stuff. The kingdom of God is, it's a thing. It's big. And there's stuff there that I've yet to learn. So much that I've yet to learn. But I long to be a disciple. So that's a good conversation for today. We will see what the next references are. I'm not sure what the next references are in the Gospel of Matthew, but we'll find out in the next kingdom teaching that we have in the series here. We'll talk to you then.